Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. Today's Do You Know question is, do you know the social and theological backdrop behind Labor Day? Since 1894, the first Monday in September has always been known as Labor Day. Labor Day was established to pay tribute to the achievements and contributions of the American workers. Today, Labor Day symbolizes pretty much the end of summer, and it's usually celebrated with parties, parades, and so on. However, many people are unaware of the origins of Labor Day, as well as the connections and association with Catholic social teachings regarding workers' rights and the support of labor unions. In the late 1800s, when the Industrial Revolution was in full swing, the workers were pretty much abused and underpaid. There was poorly compensated to such an extent that, most workers were working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, just to eke out a kind of a basic living. Children, 5 and 6 years old, were working in mines, factories, and so on, poorly compensated, almost or not compensated at all. And all workers, especially the poor and many of the recent immigrants that came, worked in horrendous working conditions with limited access to fresh air, sanitary conditions, as well as even breaks, and so on. And so, within this context of these horrendous conditions, labor unions, which had begun earlier, now surfaced to the fore once again to protect the rights of workers. They organized strikes and various rallies to really kind of address the horrendous working conditions and to work for the rights of workers and so on. Just to give you some examples with regards to these organized strikes. By the way, these strikes were really opposed very strongly by the employers to such an extent that oftentimes the strikes or the rallies led to a great deal of violence and so on. A couple of examples. In 1886, for example, we have what they call the Haymarket Riot in Chicago, which turned violent and led to the killing of several police and a number of workers. In 1894, there was the famous and notorious Pullman train strikes that affected the bulk of the country, transportation and so on. And this was one of the most violent strikes, and it turned violent, let's put it this way. And it brought the attention of the horrendous working conditions to the whole nation. As a matter of fact, federal troops were called in, which led to a great deal of, to put down the strike, which led to a great deal of violence, and many were killed on both sides and so on. So in 1894, Congress decided that it was time to really dedicate a day to the workers, and they established Labor Day on the first Monday in September. This actually began a few years earlier, where in 1882, over 10,000 workers took the day off and protested horrendous working conditions that were happening in New York City. They rallied and paraded to pay attention to the horrendous working conditions and so on. So in 1894, Congress approved Labor Day, and we continue to celebrate it to this very day. Now, the Catholic Church, under Pope Leo XIII at the time, was very much attuned to the rights of workers and the horrendous working conditions that they were living under, and therefore actively advocated for the rights of workers as well as the support of labor unions. In 1891, Pope Leo XIII published the first, what we would call the first Catholic social teaching encyclical, Rerum Novarum, in which he addressed the rights of workers, both the rights of workers and the rights of the employers as well. And it advocated consistently for the dignity of work and the respecting of workers' rights, the right to a just living wage, and the improvement of working conditions, a radical improvement of working conditions across the board, and it actively supported labor unions. Because why? Labor unions were an attempt to seek justice for the workers. In 1931, Pope Pius XI issued Quadragesimo Anno, literally 40 years later, reaffirming the rights of workers and the support of labor unions. In 1991, Pope John Paul II issued his encyclical Centesimus Annus, again, 100 years later, literally, meaning that term, in which he reaffirmed that once again the Church's support of the rights of workers and the dignity of work as a whole. Catholic social teachings affirms that work is intrinsically good for all. Why? Because it really is a source of meaning and purpose in one's life. It allows us for the development of skills and potentials. It gives us a sense of purpose. It allows us to collaborate with others. It contributes to the wider society, and ultimately it actually helps us be co-creators with God in establishing the material world. So a just society, both socially and theologically and religiously, really advocates for a just wage, a living wage, and right and respect of workers, as well as support of labor unions. As a matter of fact, the Church actively promotes equal employment for all and a just living wage, and when necessary actually supports strikes by the workers in order to, as a last result always, and always to promote the rights of workers, always attention to any harm that might be done to the common good as well. I mean, the Church is very much aware of that. So as we celebrate Labor Day, it's important to really be aware of the backdrop to the Labor Day, both socially and theologically, and renew our commitment once again to respect the dignity of work and the rights of workers. So I hope this has helped to explain just a bit of what the backdrop is to the behind Labor Day, and I hope you'll return again to more of the series questions as we continue to delve into our Christian teachings and traditions. Thank you very much.